The Philippines, known as the center of global marine biodiversity, an international shipping route, the seafaring capital of the world, and an archipelagic country, has held and maintained its reputation as a maritime nation. Such is the country's territorial extent that in 1967, it placed the brunt of responsibility to the newly formed Philippine Coast Guard. In 1968, the Philippine Navy Flag Officer in Command, Commodore Dioscoro Papa, consented to form a non-military personnel to perform obligations to assist the PCG. However, he was not able to implement this until his retirement in 1972. During the Philippine Navy Day on February 9, 1972, the newly appointed Philippine Navy Flag Officer in Command, Commodore Hilario Ruiz, expressed his utmost desire to form a civilian group of volunteers to help them police the seas. That evening, the Civilian Volunteer Auxiliary Coast Guard was born. The following year, in 1973, PCG Commandant Commodore Ernesto Ogbinar conceptualized the National Coast Guard Auxiliary. He took pains in formalizing the NCGA and was considered as the father of the Coast Guard Auxiliary. On March 10 of the same year, the 1st Auxiliary Coast Guard Squadron was formally activated under the jurisdiction of the 1st Coast Guard District in National Capital Region, Central Luzon. It was placed under the leadership of the very first squadron commander, Commodore Richard Brown. 3 years later, in 1988, Commodore Matias B. Asnar III was designated as the acting national commander. Then officially known as the Philippine Coast Guard Auxiliary, the organization publicly displayed its strength in 1994 by participating in the International Coastal Cleanup, which was hosted by the Ocean Conservancy in Washington, D.C. The PCGA was the most active non-government agency that mobilized its volunteers all across the country. In 2002, Vice Admiral Joselito Asieniero was designated as the National Director. He served for the next 6 years as the PCGA's leader. The following year marked the golden age for the Philippine Coast Guard Auxiliary, when the Senate and the House of Representatives passed the Republic Act 9993, or the Philippine Coast Guard Law of 2009. This law established the Philippine Coast Guard as an armed and uniformed service and transferred its supervision from the Department of National Defense to the Department of Transportation and Communications. The PCG law has also recognized the PCGA as the civilian volunteer arm of the Coast Guard, with the task of assisting the PCG in promoting safety of life and property at sea, preservation of the marine environment, maintenance of aids to navigation, conduct of search and rescue, and the enhancement of maritime community relations that include civic actions and youth development programs. In 2008, Vice Admiral Eduardo Alvarez was designated as the National Director of PCGA. He was succeeded by Vice Admiral Higinio C. Mendoza Jr. in 2010. 2 years later, in 2012, Vice Admiral Danilo Cabalde took over the helm of the PCGA. It was on the same year when the PCGA Regulations Manual was published. It guided the PCGA members from all across the country in the areas of administrations, operations, and protocol. For the next couple of years, the PCGA leadership has spearheaded projects that have further strengthened its mission and commitment to the Philippine Coast Guard. It has also institutionalized policies that develop and professionalize the organization. Such projects were carried through by Vice Admiral Joseph D. when he was elected as the PCGA's National Director in 2014. It was during his time when the 1967 concept of recruiting coastal villagers was finally put into effect. In a year's time, since his election as the National Director, Vice Admiral D has successfully intensified the good relationship between the PCG and the PCGA. By the year 2015, PCGA was in full speed under its new helmsman, Vice Admiral Valentin B. Preto Jr. His leadership and administration continued to steer PCGA to its full potential with a total strength reaching to 10,012 districts. It has also opened its doors to a diverse set of professionals such as seafarers, maritime stakeholders, educators, divers, medical practitioners, businessmen, pastors, media practitioners, aviators, lawmakers, law enforcers, and some public personalities. Propelling this organization forward are its first responders, operatives, and heroes. The Coastal Community Auxiliaries, composed of fishermen and coastal villagers. The National Auxiliary Main Office has also ensured the continuous training, education, proper equipage of its auxiliary districts to fortify its capabilities in its four functional areas: the maritime search and rescue, maritime safety, marine environmental protection, and maritime community relations. These functions are reinforced with the surface and air assets of the PCGA. It was during this term when the PCGA Flotilla and the PCGA Air Group were launched to assist the organization and the Coast Guard in the areas of search and rescue and maritime safety. The year 2018 unveiled new opportunities for the PCGA to bring its mission closer to the smaller islands of the country with the activation of its 13th district, the Coast Guard Auxiliary District, Southern Visayas. With the standardization of training and education for its members, the PCGA likewise brought the strict implementation of protocol at the forefront of its administrative and ceremonial functions. Through this all, the PCGA maintained its strong camaraderie, partnership, and brotherhood with its counterparts from the foreign auxiliaries, the local and national government organizations, the private institutions, and most especially from the Philippine Coast Guard. 46 years into its conception, the Philippine Coast Guard Auxiliary has grown into a formidable and capable force, its members ever vigilant, capable, and dedicated to the missions of the PCG. More than just their abled hands and pure hearts, the PCGA volunteers remain to be the stalwarts of the seas, ready to offer their time, talents, and treasures anytime, anywhere, and in any way. This is the Philippine Coast Guard Auxiliary.